Assalamu alaikum. Well, let's have some discussion. Let me just quick look over these. The hikmah, the headline hikmahs I have in that. So all sensations have a process connected to them. That means anything that we can sense in our body, whatever it might be, any sensation, whether it's tickling, tingling, and if we were to list the kind of sensations, people say things like, I have a fuzzy feeling, heavy, contracted, tense, tightness, on and on and on and on. Everything, every time we can have a sensation, remember that these sensations by the nerves and the design of the living body, which is designed to have movement, it's not isolated and independent from the whole. This is back to that question about the systems. This is a whole system. When the homeopath said, we're whole human beings from our innermost spiritual to our innermost physical. And so here's one so sensations have a process. We may not be able to recognize a process, but remember this too, that the scientists, the biologists, the medical people, every day there are new discoveries of a new chemical in the body, a new process. The most recent one, which I find fascinating, is the lymphatic system. Do you know the lymphatic system? I know you're not, you know the lymphatic system.
Lymphatic or lymphatic?
Lymphatic. Lymphatic. You guys know, no?
Yes.
You heard it from me. The lymphatic system is one of the major systems by which we detox and send things that don't belong in the body eventually out through the skin, sweating, the breath, urine, feces, the way we manage to flow other than just the blood flow. It's a greater system than the blood flow system. Up until just this last year, biologists, physiologists, they didn't understand, well, how does the brain, which has all this enormous activity, burning fuel, more than the body in some ways, how does it detox itself? And then they discovered by examination microscopic channels, which they named the lymphatic system. Now the beautiful thing about this is the lymphatic system is not something that's obvious, but this is necessary for the detoxification from that extreme activity that takes place up here. And in the modern world with the gluten and all this stuff, the inflammation that takes place up there. But the interesting, the thing that tops it off for me, as I'm fascinating, is this system, the lymphatic system, works best. Can you guess? You know the answer. Can you guess in what situation it works best? Lying and sleeping on your side. SubhanAllah. Isn't that awesome? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
And something that it drains out from the back of the spine and comes down some side. Yeah, now that you mentioned.
Well, the more recent thing, they're pretty sure, some of the people that did these same studies, they're pretty sure that it comes out with yawning and through tears that are up here. You know, we have tears that come from down here in the gut. That's the autonomic nervous. Like again, we don't say, well, I'm gonna sob now. No, like laughter. It's a similar kind of wave of autonomic release. But we have the other kind of tears that come from up here, and they believe, and yawning, these all, and inspiration. When you take a breath in, it stimulates that flow from the brain. They're discovering things, and the point I was making is every day more and more and more. Chemicals and chemistry that we didn't even have names for, 25 years ago, 15 years ago, constantly. And that will continue because it's such a vast system. It'll go on and on, mashallah. So this broad picture, the holistic picture, the broad picture, what are the things about hikmah? Said if it's sound, then all the discoveries and all the things you find will support it. Hikmah doesn't go out of fashion. Hikmah remains. It's true 1,000 years ago, 1,400 years ago, it'll be true now. So one of the ones I didn't, I put in here, I refer to it, that is a connected body connects with others. So there's also part of the movement is what they call proprioceptive neurobiological functioning. So it's a fancy way of saying the right hand knows what the left hand's doing. You know this expression? People know that expression? The right hand knows what the left hand's doing is another way of saying that the person's honest. You know, he has integrity. But it also literally means that there's connection. When I did this, the sense that one part of the body can have of another part of the body is called the proprioceptive ability. This thing where you close your eyes and you touch your nose. Proprioceptive, demanding exercise also studies reduces the cognitive disabilities in dementia. Those kind of exercises that lets you coordinate yourself. There's a movement called NAT move, N-A-T-M-O-V, NAT move. Anybody know that one? And again, what they do in that move, they do all these things that we did traditionally. If you went out into the forest or if you were working, lifting logs, climbing over things, climbing up on things, going over rocks, walking across a small thing across the river, walking on uneven ground, doing things. And the body responds to that naturally because we're designed to do things. We're not designed just to, or with a machine. We're designed to do things and to make things. Because when we make something, I remember when I was learning all this, one of the things I did is I went up in New Mexico and I got a truck and I went up into the mountains and I dug stones, what do they call it, flagstones. Dug them out of a quarry. It was, in New Mexico you can do that. Brought them down and I laid them. I laid them out, made the ground. And I did it because I couldn't afford a gym. But I didn't want to go to a gym. But when you do that, you have a product that the nervous system also appreciates, and that's part of this whole thing of, you get somewhere. When we're very little babies, we learn, learning to crawl. It's just an awesome thing to watch children and the way they develop, and then when they move into this world and develop their ability to move, stand, walk. First thing is worming, where they learn how to turn over, called worming, and they finally get from their back to their bellies. Then the next thing they do from they get there is they learn how to push up and look around. What an awesome thing. When I see babies doing it, I just swaddle them. They're looking around. That impulse that Allah designed to us continues, or should continue to now. Looking around, we want to see what's going on. And then we want to go with it, we want to move ahead. And babies will start, and first thing they do, they're not successful. First time they try and walk, push, I don't know if you parents have noticed this with your little tiny ones, is the first thing they do is they push backwards. They don't quite get, well, wait a minute. I know I want to move forward, I know it has to do with my legs, my arms, but so the first attempts, they go backwards. Then they find out to learn this thing. And this thing to this day, walking. I always like to say, that's my kind of silly sense of humor. Walking is the first steps towards good health. But, in the body, the proprioception is the connecting or the coordination. So when I say, when you do an exercise where you explore all the different possibilities, if you have a dumbbell and you move it like this, and you move that one like that, or you move your left leg like that, and you get a connection from this foot to that, and you explore all these possibilities. The more you do that, the more you connect different parts of your body with other parts of your body, proprioception. And there's a whole school called proprioceptive neurobiological functioning. And those guys are pretty interesting what they do in terms of exercise, the kind of exercise, and the kind of therapy that takes place with the kind of exercise they do. But back in the earlier days, this woman, Irmgard Bartinieff, I think she was she was a European, I can't remember if she's English or maybe French, something like that. She said that the more that we're connected in our bodies, the more we'll connect with others. So people that have social anxiety, something to think about is that they begin to develop, their bodies, or the guy that had the cleaning, and this is his favorite exercise with the dumbbells. The more we can reclaim the natural sense of our experienced foundational body arena, space, place, the more we can reclaim that and we have it unconsciously with us as part of our capabilities, the more we'll be like that in the world. The larger our capacity of being will be. So poison is anything that we cannot assimilate or eliminate. The word tox, it comes from the poison the Greeks would put on an arrow. And that's a real poison. An arrow is a poison. We cannot assimilate it or eliminate it. It interrupts our locus and our wholeness of being. It's a foreign body. And we cannot, in some cases, we can't even pull it out. But the same with experience. If we spend too much time, we don't realize how the modern world is poisoning us and we're not taking it. When we're driving at 75, 85 miles a mile down the road in these metal isolation pods, as my son put it, if that car is pulling out from a driveway, unconsciously or consciously, we'll see if they're looking our way. If they're not looking our way, no, our body. But even being in that vehicle, we're constantly on guard, like someone who's been traumatized and is hyper-vigilant. When a person is traumatized or they're abused when they're young, right? They're hyper-vigilant. That is, they're constantly aware of the possibility of attack or whatever. So there's a constant kind of hyper-activation of the nervous system that's on guard for anything that might happen. And they become very sensitive, hypersensitive. And we say, oh, it's all in your head. No, it's not in your head, it's in your body. But it's probably come from difficulties you had earlier. And we have to respect that or understand it if we're going to have hikmah. Not just say, oh, it's all in your head, get over it. That'd be nice if that were a reality. Just get over it. It'd be nice if that's the way it works. It doesn't work that way. These memories are stored in our system, and they're seeking negotiation, renegotiation. They're seeking fulfillment. Everything in Allah's creation that's alive is seeking equilibrium and balance at all times, from the micro to the complex human being. And that seeking, one of the deep, deep hikmahs that the modern world in medicine does not recognize. And this is really, I think, a really important one. One of the deep hikmahs is that symptoms come from the being. They come from the system. Symptoms come forth from us. And every symptom that comes forth is an attempt to achieve an end, a fulfillment, a completion, a resolution, a negotiation of whatever is disturbed inside. So symptoms are positive in that sense. They're coming forth and they want to fulfill and complete themselves. When we stop them, we stop the language of the biology of our body. We're stopping its natural expression. And with each person, and this is the wisdom of the homeopath. The wisdom of a homeopath is they look at these symptoms, that this person has asthma, but it's not the same as that person's asthma. Their asthma has with it this kind of eczema. It has this kind of aggravation from this kind of climate. It has this aggravation from a different kind of food than that one has. Very peculiar combinations of symptoms that are manifesting that by Allah's mercy, we recognize what that system is trying to do. And rather than stop them, which runs the risk of pushing them in, covering them up, which is unfortunately the control paradigm, right? The control paradigm is to stop them from happening. That doesn't mean it's still, whatever is causing that has not gone away. So we're defeating the whole purpose of healing, which is part of that natural expression of the symptom. Stopping pain, yeah, we want to stop pain. There's a saying, you know, from the old homeopaths. They said, what a wonderful medicine opium is, it has alleviated the suffering of so many physicians. And they'll pay a lot for that. Right? They'll pay more. So we have to look deeper than that. This is our mandate as Muslims. Is hikmah, wisdom. In the Quran it says Allah, Allah says in the Quran, it says He, the Prophet ﷺ, He will purify you. He'll purify you. He will teach you the ayahs. And in that part of that verse, ayahs is not the Quranic ayahs, it's Allah's ayahs in itself and on the horizon. The forms. The taqiyuddin, he said, I learned medicine in the forest with my grandfather, with the animals and the plants. That's when I said, okay, this is the one I want to learn from. He will teach you the ayahs, he will teach you the kitab, that's the Quran, the guidance and the template for understanding and interpreting the ayahs and all that we experience, and the hikmah. So the hikmah should be the product of a broader knowledge. So the hikmah that we, we need to get this clear. We need to recognize we should know what causes that person to go out and shoot people and kill innocents. We need to know that. We need to understand that if we're going to heal that in our collective self. And we need to understand what chronic disease is. Why we have chronic disease, why it's passed on from generations, the inclination. And to heal ourselves as best we can. So symptom. Now the interesting thing about homeopathy, it's controversial, but mostly because things like Wikipedia's had the same definition of homeopathy and discussion of it for years, and they will not edit it in the least. They will not edit it. And I, sent an email out to friends and one of these, these things that you join to try to sign a petition to open that, because it's all one-sided. It's all this traditional, this mainstream thing of, well, it's placebo, there's no study. There is more material backing up the clinical effectiveness of homeopathy than any other medicine you'll find. Well, honestly, tomes and volumes and history for years, they've been doing they've been holistic, they're looking at illness holistically, mental, emotional, physical symptoms, syndromes and patterns. It's not a folk medicine, and it's not a new age kind of imagination with placebo. It's very deep. And the depth of that comes from the Muslim traditions. Homeopathy came out of the Hanuman, who developed homeopathy, was an amazing genius. He was fluent in about 7 or 8 languages, Greek, Arabic, Latin, all of these things. He was in Austria in 1810, he wrote his first thing on homeopathy. And he said that he developed homeopathy and discovered it because the principles were always there, from Hippocrates and the Greeks to the Chinese, the understanding of homeopathy, that is treating medicine which you treat with opposites, allopathic, or with similars, homeopathy, was always there. But he developed it, and he said he developed it only because I believed in the mercy of God. That was what my teacher taught Yudin. He said, that's the earmark of someone who practices real medicine, someone who believes and respects Allah's rahmah. And when Hanuman gave his valedictory speech, medical school in Austria, the subject was the wonderful structure of the human animal. And each part that in his speech, he said, praise be to God that he did this. Praise be to God that he made it this way. Praise be, with all praise to God. And Hanuman learned the method of preparing the homeopathic remedies from the Muslim pharmacists traditionally. Fakhruddin al-Razi, one of those from that time, he said everything has its juzb, its nafs, and its ruh. These are all layers and levels of it being and existing. And the homeopaths, they say, well, we take away the jism and we change it, or the traditional pharmacists. Traditionally, they would do things, they would process substances to release and to mitigate the toxic effects of many things, and to amplify these more subtle aspects of the substance. So they were creating the way that Hanuman made his medicines. He got directly from the Arab pharmacists and read it in his notes, in his, I started to say his kanun, his organon of medicine, which is like a kanun. It's like a, the organon. He makes reference in the notes to those Arab physicians and how they process these substances to increase the vitality of the biological healing capabilities. But subtle nevertheless. Now, interesting thing, and when this news came out about 6-7 years ago, all the homeopaths in the world, a great deal of them were atheists, and they just jumped on it and said, no, it's not possible. When it came out that in his estate there was Quran, tasbih, and prayer mat. Allahu Akbar. But when he moved from Austria to France, he was 85, married a 35-year-old woman from Paris. There's a book about them called Homeopathy, a Love Story. and that's when his career took off. But he changed his name from Christian to Samuel. So, I don't know, the evidence is pretty strong. Especially when he says this is from the mercy of God and so forth. Allahu Akbar. But nevertheless, what he did was by Islamic principles, hikmah. So I say homeopathy is a hikmah for our times. We can't ignore it. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the hikmah is the lost riding beast of the moment. Right? Meaning, like the horse that's been strayed, he's found the horse. It's the lost riding beast of the moment. And he has a right to it wherever he might find it. So the Muslims, after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they took on Greek medicine part and parcel. I mean, basically, Ibn Sina was just a sort of commentary and enlargement from Jalinus, from Galen. Basically Greek medicine. And a great deal of the Greek medicine came to the Western world, including Europe, through Arab manuscripts and through the Hakims, traditionally. So we took it on as a community completely because it was in harmony with our basic diet of Samawati wal ard, earth, air, fire, and water, hot, cold, wet, and dry, and that paradigm that was traditional. So I just, if anybody is interested in learning more about homeopathy, I can recommend some books. I may have had them in that list anyway, but at the end, the resources. But it is a wonderful medicine, and it works. Whatever you want to say about it, I mean, I can tell you for years, I mean, I've been doing this for 40 years, practicing homeopathy. And, I get the people that can't get, they've done this, they've done that, so they come to me and say, well, I've tried everything, nothing works. You probably get that too, right? So that's the hard cases. And I remember when I first studied homeopathy to feel I was competent enough to practice with my teachers, and a woman came to me and she had eczema all over her body. And I gave her the homeopathic remedy, and then I had her follow up, and we'd often, typically, you come back in a month. You have to give it time for the body to do it, for the body to react to the remedy, and let it do what it will do in reaction, in response. Because in the end, the beautiful and the hikmah of the homeopathy is that it encourages the body to do what it's designed to do naturally. To naturally continue the process. The attempt to heal is already in the manifestation of the symptoms. Right? You get that? Maybe, maybe not. Something to think about. She came back in a month and I said, well, how are you doing? She started to cry. And I said, what are you crying about? She said, I have skin on my legs for the first time in my life. And that's from these little white pills. It's not as a placebo. And that's when I said, okay, I'm going to stay with homeopathy. I'm going to study it. I'm going to continue to study it. I'm going to learn about it. I still, to this day, I've been studying certain remedies for 40 years, and I'm still studying them again, more and more. Nowadays, astaghfirullah, the sad tragedy is that the doctor, if they need to know more about the medication, they might call the salesman. And it's tragic, it's tragic. Used to be the stock and trade for the physician were his medicines, and he learned his medicine, and he learned his symptom diagnosis, he learned his physical diagnosis, he learned by palpation, by auscultation, he learned by all these signs and these things. He developed in himself very highly polished technology that could identify what was going wrong and understand it and sense it, if nothing else. Just like the dog can sense cancer in cancer people before, or the epileptic before the epilepsy. Do you all know that about the dogs?
Yeah.
Most people know that about the dogs. So, but we have these capabilities too. We can develop this sensation, this sensibility. So I had to turn to homeopathy a bit, recommend it if nothing else. And it's something that can be used in the home. One of the things that's remarkable about homeopathy is there's an enormous history of lay people who became masters of it and were given kind of honorary degrees for the medicine. One of the masters of homeopathy is alive today in Greece. And for years and years he's been teaching only medical doctors because he wanted to become more legitimate. Now he's opening it up a bit more to therapists, so forth. But George Fithokos is his name. In 10 years, he wrote a book in 10 years before AIDS was identified as the sole breakdown of the immune system. He said, because of the kind of medicines being practiced and the pattern and what's going on, we will see very soon this disease, and he described it clearly, the AIDS breakdown of the ability for the body to defend itself. That was 10 years ago. It's in the book. You can look at the book, look at the publishing date, see for yourself. So there's masters of homeopathy in India, quite a few still. But they're hidden away, and they're mixed with a lot of people that, I get patients that have gone to some homeopath in India, and they're just terrible things, But I recommend it. And the other history of homeopathy that's interesting is not only a long history of lay people who became masters at it and were recognized as masters, but also a long history of women who were masters at practicing it.
I read somewhere, I heard this, that they actually there was some report that they made the petrol, petrol guys around the turn of the century. I forget the name of that report. I saw the report. Huh?
The Flexner report?
Yeah.
What was it again?
And the article was that before that Flexner report, so you had homeopathy, you had colleges, you had actually instructing and herbalists, and they had schools and universities, and then they squashed all that stuff.
200 hospitals in this country were homeopathic completely at the turn of the century. Mm-hmm. And when homeopathy was coming into knowledge and use in America, it was called the New School. And a lot of the established physicians were threatened by it. So they formed an organization to oppose it. And you know what that organization is called? American Medical Association, to this day. So it's dubious beginnings. Anyway, so that's, I know I covered quite a few of the things. Kefahal is, this thing of paying attention to the systems in the body, or the sensations in the body, and learning what your state is, and recognizing it, and discovering that by being present with yourself, you can successfully manage whatever's going on. You can manage better. It takes stages. But one of the things that can happen when you recognize that annoying person, and you notice what's happening in your body, if you feel annoyed by them, it's happening in your body. It's in your body. So owning it, recognizing it, and being with it, that enables you to not dissociate, but to recognize, okay, he's doing his thing, that's who he is, that's his personality, and here I am with my, and I can still have empathy, compassion, and connection with him. Inshallah. You get that? Paying attention to what's happening in your body in all circumstances, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So to speak. So, okay, I don't know what else. Let's So some questions and discussion? Yeah.
I just wanted to know that gentleman's name was Haraman?
Haneman, H-A-H-N-E-M-A-N.
H-A-N.
H-N-E-M-A-N. I think, is there something in the resources?
It's right next to the headline. The resources.
Well, in the resources, I have a very short list here. I don't know. I wanted to try just have some of the more. But Medicine for the Millennium, that's the one from George Patokos that kind of describes homeopathy.
I wanted to see if the sisters had any questions. I
Yes.
didn't give them a chance, so feel free to speak over there, inshallah.
We do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
First of all, we were asking if you could please explain what the 5 losing agendas are that are listed in the syllabus. And then another question I have is, do you have any thoughts about the relationship between nutrition and emotional trauma and tazkiyah al-nafs? If you could explain to us maybe a little bit more about that topic.
But let me touch on that nutrition and trauma. Trauma, first of all, is a wound that we've not recovered from. Trauma is also, it's like in mainstream medicine, trauma is something that's happened to the body dramatically that needs repair and needs taken care of. But trauma literally means wound from the Greek. So trauma is a wound. Now, a wound that we cut ourselves, it heals naturally. We're also designed, like the gazelle, to heal naturally. But in the modern world, and the control over paradigms that we've learned to live with, as we grow up, our natural animal nature, we have to tether it. We have to, the akal is part of it, and that's part of, but we want to do that without destroying the vitality of our being. So trauma trauma was recognized as shell shock, first of all, from the wars. And then it was actually the feminist movement, to give them due, and they said, people who went through abuse when they're children, or, attack, or all these different things that they went through, that could be a wound and a trauma that doesn't heal because it's not addressed appropriately or whatever. We try to address it with psychotherapy. We try to address it, all different ways people try to, it's always been present. But in the modern world, it's been more present and more predominant because we do not have the natural things in place, the organic natural things that enable us to heal with each other, friends and neighbors, and to be able to talk about it. The auntie you could go in to talk to about something. That we didn't have the lifestyle that enabled us to be more natural in our healing processes. So for anybody who studied trauma, we knew because the people who studied trauma, we knew, and we looked at the statistics and figures, and I've gone back to this more than once, that more people died from the Vietnam War from their own hand than died in the war. What does that say? And I've gone back to check, and the interesting thing is, it wasn't even the ones that were in combat. The ones that weren't in combat, but that were there at the desks, and they were more prone to it. And we knew, because of what was in place at that time, First World War, Second World War, Third World War, if we studying the trauma and the after effects of what's called post-traumatic stress, we knew that the ones that went to Afghanistan, astaghfirullah, and to Iraq, astaghfirullah, that they would be worse off, and they're worse off. So what does it mean that the warrior, the soldier, is dying from his own hand? What does that mean? That's not a little thing. So trauma exists. When a person's traumatized, as I said a little while ago, the system is in preparation for that, and to managing that becomes hypersensitive, hypervigilant, trouble sleeping, sensitive to very small things, even sensitive to things in the environment, and sensitive to foods. Most people were super hypersensitive to foods in which everything, I met a woman once, she could only eat bread and tea, and she couldn't touch anything plastic. Or she would have terrible rash, breathing difficult. I mean, she had to live this very, so they become very hypersensitive and hypervigilant as a natural defensive mechanism to protect against these things that can be dangerous for them. So food they eat and all that, that's relative then to someone who's not resolved trauma. By the same token, the saying is, trauma is the highway to addiction. Trauma is the highway to addiction. I like the nodding I get from you.
I mean, that's what I'm being trained in, so yeah, I mean, it's process addictions and a lot of that.
But I appreciate it, so to say that.
No, yeah.
And addiction, is all sorts of things. I mean, addiction, we can say addiction is the drive to do something that violates our principles, our ethics. That's a broad definition of addiction. Because people can be addicted to heroin, they can be addicted to pasta. I'm potentially one of those. Well, I have my blowout days if I think of something, or couscous, another kind of pasta. No, but we can have all kinds of addictions. And, overeating is one of the most common ones. Some people, again, it's very complex, the things that led to that. So your question was about trauma and eating. It's becoming more and more clear with a lot of the research, like the GAP diet. People familiar? You're familiar with the GAP diet, I know that, right? You're familiar with the GAP. It's becoming more and more obvious by studies that the food we eat and what happens to that as it affects the hormones and then proteins in the brain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that the mood, the thoughts, the ideas, all of these things. And back to this basic principle, which all things take part in our health and well-being. All things. Our spiritual practice, our social experiences, environment. Hippocrates wrote volumes on water, air, and places. And the effect. Because then people said, well, the best place to live is this place, this kind of air, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like we don't even think about that anymore. They used to have a handle on the weather changes and the climate and how that would affect. There was a man in England, he was known as the Hippocrates of the Lake in England, Sydenham, Thomas Sydenham. And he'd get the journal every day of the weather, the people who were coming for what kind of ailments, and what in the journal he would make notes, because it's been like this kind of weather, this is happening, we will see in the next month these kind of ailments, and so on. And he connected all the weather conditions with what people were going through. We forgot that completely, so we got to the point where people say, well, there was a time a while ago, now it's all germs and viruses, but people used to say, well, we still don't know the name, this is cliche, we still don't know the cause of the common cold. Traditionally, we knew it because it was cold. Thomas Jefferson said, cold, and he said, cold is the root of all disease. Life is warm and moist. And when that's offended, then we run into problems right away. And always, still to this day, it's going on right now, and my ears are plugged maybe from it too, adjusting climate change and weather seasonal. Where's our naturopath? Seasonal weather changes, the body has to new fluids, whole new fluid system has to be replaced, and kind of different fats and different things have to be there. And that's what a cold often is this changing of the oil, so to speak. Changing of the oil. Time for an oil change. And traditionally, people like the Chinese cultures, they did things that were specifically designed. Okay, springtime comes, we're going to eat just greens, soup with ginger for 3 days, whole family, nothing else. And fasting, I'm sorry if I didn't completely answer that question, but I don't think I got sufficiently into fasting. Fasting has probably been one of the most traditional medicines from all cultures, in all time, from ancient times to the present. And more things are being discovered about fasting. And I mentioned someone earlier that I met this woman who was a fitness trainer, and she was teaching people, she said, well, I'm teaching people about the prophetic diet. And I said, well, what is that, just not eating? Because that's the reality of it. And she thought, she said, well, yeah, I guess so. But with due respect to her, I mean, they did not eat that much. And we do not eat that much. We don't need it. Parents come to me and say, oh, I'm so worried about my daughter. She's not eating. Well, what are you doing? We're trying to get her to eat. I said, don't try to get her to eat. I said, is she active? She's climbing around. She's like more active than I could ever be. And she eats like just a few morsels. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And Allah designed the body. Now the interesting thing is, Allah designed us in our body to benefit from stress of a certain degree, within a limit. Right? Exercise is stress. When we exercise and we stress the body, at first it may not feel good, but is it not true for you guys that work out too much? I'm looking down there. Who work out maybe too much, does it not feel good, finally? Pretty quickly, right? True? Same with not eating. And the same similar things happens when we do not eat. It happens when you have exercise. Exercise and fasting or abstaining food. Now we have our fast. So we have our fast that's. We have our fast, which is, that's different. We can also fast like tradition. The Greeks used to put sick people on a diet of just barley gruel. Who was talking about barley? We were talking about someone we were talking about barley. Barley gruel for like 2 weeks. People in this country used to fast on water at the turn of the century for 30 or 40 days. Nothing else but water. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that. But eating very little in the day. Ibn Sina said something that turns upside down the thing we've all learned, which is the evening meal is the most important meal, he said. He said, if you do not take that meal, you will grow old quickly. Sorry? About the evening meal. And now the people that study intermittent fasting, I suggest you look into intermittent fasting. And anybody who's overweight, look at intermittent fasting. It works. And being overweight is not just having excess fat that can't move a muscle. It has a chemical, hormonal effect and properties that disturb all kinds of things, including the brain, not just the blood sugar and the insulin and all that balance. It disturbs the brain itself and can cause inflammation in the brain. So this is important stuff. It's really important stuff. And, we do Ramadan. Most of us in this country, we did intermittent fasting this last Ramadan because we fasted 16 hours for the most part, most days. That's what it takes, 16 hours of not eating. But in the other medicinal fasting, you can take water. You can take minimal things and have a good meal in the evening, but you'll find several things you'll find if you do it for a period of time. Because it's more natural, and it's also what we have adapted to as a species over centuries, which was, the hunter-gatherers, if you want to use that as an example, they were out doing things in the day, hunting and gathering.